going, but it's still.
Okay. Yes. It's going. Yes. You had to hold your mouth just right.
Technical problems, always. We knew we were going to be, excuse me, a small group because I think a lot of people are standing in line to get Kwame to sign their books. But we're going to go ahead and do this anyhow. And for the people that are standing in line, God bless them. My husband's there with my copies of his books too. So sometimes it's nice to have somebody do that for you. Karen and I are here today to talk about if we were in charge of giving out all the book awards, what books from last year that kind of got overlooked would we like to see highlighted in some way? And we're screencasting this, which is why we had some technical difficulties. And we're going to end up putting it up on YouTube so that you'll be able to kind of go back and revisit it. And we thought we'd start with telling you who we are. And I'm Teri Lesesne. My last name rhymes with insane. That's how you kind of remember, not how to spell it, but certainly how to pronounce it. You can catch me on Twitter at Professor Nana. I have a blog at LiveJournal that's called Professor Nana. It makes it easy to remember. And my email address is drl@shsu.edu. That way you don't have to try to remember how to spell my first or my last name, both of which are a little bit difficult.
I'm Karen Perry, and I work with Teri at San Francisco State University in the Library Science Department. You can find me on Twitter at kperry, and my email address is kperry@shsu.edu. So.
Yeah, she gets interesting emails sometimes
Katy
from
Perry.
Katy Perry
A lot
fans.
of concert information.
It's kind of fun. After the conference is over, and if this screencast works, yesterday we had some technical issues with it again. We'll be posting this up. We have a YouTube channel called PPPD, which is Professors Providing Professional Development, sometimes in our pajamas. But that seemed to be a little bit long for a title. So Karen and I, for the last couple of years, have been doing just short little YouTube kinds of videos. Sometimes we book talk books. So here are a bunch of new picture books, or here's some good nonfiction. And we also do things like how to evaluate fantasy. What is a theme and what is not a theme? So we do instructional videos, and we use those for a YALSA course that we teach online called Reading with a Critical Eye. And we also do it for our children's and young adult literature students because we're an online program and we miss the face-to-face. So we thought, well, why not put some of the lecture kind of materials we used to do and put it up in a way that students can access. So you can find it at bit.ly/PPPD2016. And you'll be able to see this screencast as well as download and watch any of the others that we've put up there as well.
I think we did one from last year here. We did a graphic novel one.
We did one on graphic novels. And we're already thinking about what do we want to do next year? We're always thinking ahead. I think a lot of people are familiar with the books that won at the Youth Media Awards announcements. And certainly if you haven't read them, you've got them on order, or they're next in your to be read stack. The Newbery, I mean, it's a wonderful list of books. I've read all the Newberries. We've read all the Caldecott books. And next week, John Lewis and his two co-authors will be on our campus talking about March 3 and the genesis of that book. We're one of the National Book Award on campus facilities, so we get a National Book Award winner each year.
Or finalist.
Last year we had Noelle Stevenson, who did Lumberjacks and Nimona. And this year we get John Lewis, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about being able not only to hear him, but to get my books autographed because I absolutely adore them. If you work with young adults in youth services, you've probably also seen the Prince Honor books. I'm still working my way through a couple of them. And the Morris Award, which was given to absolutely the right book, The Serpent King by Jeff Zettner. I'm reading his second book right now, and it's just blowing me away. What great new talent we have.
And he's such a cutie.
Yeah, and he is. He's very cute and very smart. The Coretta Scott King Award by Javaka Steptoe. I just love seeing the son of John Steptoe kind of making his own way in the world. And we love in Texas the Pura Belpre winner, Lowriders from the Center of the Earth, because there we don't have to explain what a lowrider is. But once we get outside of Texas, we have to say, people raise a hand, what's a low rider? And you try to have to explain how this is something cultural. And for us, it's very commonplace to see low riders on the street, but probably not as much in Hattiesburg would be my guess, but maybe I'm wrong there. And we love the Geisel winner. When we got the copy of We Are Growing, Karen and I did a video just on the first 2 Elephant and Piggy books because they are so well done, such a worthy of having that Mo Willems kind of imprint on it. But some of our favorite titles were not announced. So we decided we'd have our own award. We're calling it the OHO Award, Our Humble Opinion. It probably should be our not so humble opinion or our opinionated opinion, but then that became Award, and that just didn't work as well for me. So we want to talk about some books that really didn't get a lot of the shiny stickers, but really are worthy of our time and our attention because they do things so well. So that's kind of the premise. Start by saying Karen and I have both served on selection committees, and it's really easy to second guess the committee's decisions, but you're talking about, in some cases, a committee of 15 people having to arrive at consensus on one book to get that gold sticker. And there's a balloting process that's tied into it, so it involves math as well. And that's why sometimes you'll hear we have one winner and one honor, and you'll go, what? And that's because of the rules and restrictions of the committee. So we understand how hard the committee works. We're not saying this should have won because that's just silly kind of thinking. But we want to talk about some of our favorite books if I ever get my voice back.
Do you need me to go get you some water from
That'd be
the hall?
lovely, because I'm going to talk about the first 2 books anyhow. You see how we work well together. It's just like, yeah, go out in the hall, get me some water. I'll soldier on through this so far. Oh, and good, more people coming in. Hey, come on, join. I wanted to start with Some Writer by Melissa Sweet. I love Melissa Sweet's work. She writes a lot. She writes in nonfiction. She also writes an awful lot about using nonfiction and evaluating nonfiction. And her website is really a very useful one. But Some Writer is the biography of E.B. White. Seems kind of appropriate. We're talking about that. The E.B. White award announcement was today. I've already posted it out to Facebook. There's some wonderful titles there. What Melissa Sweet does in this book is introduce us to E.B. White, the person. And along the way, you can see some of E.B. White's work kind of mixing in there. If you look at the double-page spread, there's Wilbur. See the little sign that says humble. So what you have is the realia art, which combines illustrations from his books, characters from his books, along with real world kinds of objects. There are letters in there, pictures of himself growing up, pictures of his family, pictures of, his workplace, and letters between E.B. White and his editor, who was the incredible Ursula Nordstrom. And it's wonderful to see that relationship between writer and editor. So you have a really complete look at the man who created some of our favorite characters, certainly Charlotte and Wilbur being among them, although I kind of hearken to Templeton a great deal because he's such a vile piece of work, and he never gets any better. And I love that because that's kind of dangerous in a children's book. Templeton doesn't at the end suddenly redeem himself. Oh, let me help you however I can. No, Templeton is like, what's in it for me? I like somebody who knows what life is all about. So it's a wonderful biography of E.B. White. And, we were thinking, we meaning the group of us who have read it, we're thinking it's going to get cybered, it's going to get excellence in nonfiction, it certainly should be considered for Caldecott, and then nothing. I know it made notables list, that's lovely, but I wanted some shiny stickers on the front of that book too. One of the other books that I absolutely adore is Marilyn Nelson. Marilyn Nelson writes novels in poetry, not novels in verse. She uses very classic forms of poetry, including sonnets, and she explains how she does that in Afterwards, which is nice. This is American Ace. An American Ace is about a boy who discovers an ancestor he never knew he had, an ancestor who was a member of the Tuskegee Airmen. And he's kind of been shunted off out of the family for a variety of reasons that you'll find out as you read the story. But the story is in these wonderful poetic phrases. If you've not read Marilyn Nelson, she also received honors for Carver, um, and for A Crown for Emmett Till. And I read today on Facebook that they may reopen the Emmett Till case, which is, talk about timely. The Crown for Emmett Till is written in sonnet. The last line of the first sonnet becomes the first line of the second sonnet, and then the last line of the second sonnet, the first line of the third, and it forms a crown. And it's just an astonishing piece of poetic work. So she's an incredible poet. I highly recommend it. And then to show you that we really like fun books too, this is Bad Guys. We already have 3 books in the series, and I adore it because what we're doing is trying to blow up stereotypes a little bit. So your main characters are a shark, a piranha, a snake, and a wolf. Nobody would ever think about these guys as being good guys. But they want to help solve crime. They want to help right wrong. And of course, when they do, chaos erupts everywhere because, oh my God, it's a piranha. And the piranha's like, but I'm here to help you. And hardly anybody ever believes these guys. But they go on these wonderful adventures. The book looks almost like a graphic novel and is appropriate for younger readers, but older readers will get some of the sly humor. It's kind of like a Disney film. There's stuff in here for the kids, and then every once in a while there's a line where the grown-ups go, aha, he's aware that older people are watching this as well. And Cat from Hunger Mountain by Ed Young. I just think it ought to be a rule that when Ed Young puts out a book, it gets a Caldecott. He's done it a few times. What I love about Ed Young is even at this point in his career, and he's been illustrating children's books for a good long time, he's still pushing the envelope in terms of the medium that he uses and the kind of artistic sense that he has. If you look at the double-page spread, you can see just the incredible textures that he's able to create. This is a folk tale, and I think Ed Young does some of his best work in folk tales. And it's just beautifully done, but contrast the inside double pages with the cover that's done almost entirely in shadow. And you can see that it's not a one-trick monkey kind of thing, that Young moves very comfortably from one kind of medium and design into another. And it's just effortless throughout. And finally, you get to talk, Karen.
Wet cement. A lot of times poetry kind of gets the shaft when it comes to awards and things that are given out. This collection of concrete poems are very clever and accessible to kids they're appealing and accessible at the same time. Some are simple, like this, Take Off. Very easily a kid would probably be able to say the T is acting as an airplane, like it would be taking off. There are others in there that are more complex, that will require them to think a little bit more about why the author chose to format the poem in that particular way. But even the title, Wet Cement, a mix of concrete poems. You can start right at the beginning and talk about that play on words and why a mix of is important and something to be connected with wet cement. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Okay, I thought so.
The Call by Peadar O'Gwilyn. He is from Ireland. He's he's super cool. Plus, I love to listen to him talk. I follow him on Instagram, so if you do, he posts pictures of where he lives all the time. So if you like Ireland, it's really, really beautiful scenery he posts. Anyway, this is categorized as a horror novel. This is for YA. It is set in a world where the people of Ireland know that fairies existed and exist still. But they've done something, in the several years past, they did something to push them out of their world into like the fairy world and keep them locked there. However, there is a drawback, because now the fairies have instituted something they call the Call, or the people have called it the Call. For kids from like age 12 to 18 or something, they can be snatched out of our world or their world at any time without warning and taken into the fairy world and made to, they have to survive like a 24-hour period. And if they can stay alive during that time with all of the fairies hunting them, playing games with them, and pulling tricks on them, if they can stay alive, they are transported back to their world and they're safe and they won't be called again. The problem is the fairies are brutal. They don't make it back very often. And what's happening to society is everybody's dying off before they get to an age where they can even have children. So there's no children being born for now a generation almost. So the kids that are now, they've instituted these schools where they go to school and train these kids how to try and survive and hide and teach them tricks to stay away from the fairies and stay alive. Our main character is a girl that has a leg that is deformed. So she cannot walk and run like her peers. And so, of course, for her, they don't think there's any chance she'll ever make it. But, of course, she uses her brain and uses other things to try and stay away from the fairies rather than just relying on, brawn. So it's an interesting, it's a good story. It's gory, it's kind of creepy, but it's also a strong empowerment girl type story. Another little poetry book. I hear a people and smell, see, touch, and taste it too. So basically, as you'll see on the 2-page spread that's next, each of the senses, there's a page devoted to each of the senses, and it talks about the senses. And it's really, really cute. I hear a seagull, I hear ocean in the shell, I hear waves. Teri's favorite one there is what, Teri?
I don't hear the worm.
You don't hear the worm. But it's just a simple poem, but it's on a concept that is important for all of our young ones to learn about. And it's you don't just taste a pickle, because there are so many other things you can do to a pickle. You hear it crunch, you can smell the tartness, you touch it, it's wet, and so it's a good conversation to say you don't just use one sense for these things. You use multiple senses for the things around us.
A Child of Books by Oliver Jeffers. Karen and I compete to see who's the biggest fangirl when it comes to Oliver Jeffers, because he's cute and he speaks with an accent and he can draw.
And if he wasn't married, he would totally marry me.
Yeah.
I know he would.
And that's why she wins, because I never say that. I love A Child of Books because that's what Karen and I try to do every moment of our lives, and what you guys do as well. And that's find those books that speak to the child so that when they are adults, they still turn to books. Because we know that a child who reads will become a lifelong reader if we do that connection time after time after time. If the kids begin to own books, when they read Kwame, when they read Kate DiCamillo, when they read the books that Andrea Davis Pinkney is producing, Phyllis Reynolds Naylor. I mean, we've got those people here at the conference, which is wonderful. This is about growing up and finding a journey through books. And Karen, you pointed out yesterday about the waves in the water.
Mm-hmm. First of all, I love this 2-page spread because this is a wonderful, wonderful line from the book. And on my imagination, I float. I mean, that is just... it's very powerful to me. I love it. And this, you can't see it, but it's a little girl, I think, or a little pigtail, on a boat. These waves, okay, on every page of this book, if you don't know it already, he's incorporated the text of like the top 100 books or something, or maybe 25 books anyways. Top 100 books that, that kids should read. And he's incorporated that text into his illustrations on every page. And in the back of the book, it has the list of books that he referred to. So it was really cool. How to Be a Hero. A wonderful book. It's cute, beyond being cute though. Okay, because we do want to move people away from being cute. I don't know, did you say this already?
I haven't said it already, yeah.
And see, I just fell into it. We try to instill in our students how to talk about books. And it's hard sometimes because I just did it myself. Boy, this book is cute. You have to come up with why is it cute and tell us more about it.
Kittens are cute, babies are cute, books are, let's find a better adjective for them.
But I fall into it too. We do it.
So do I.
All right. How to Be a Hero. This kid wants to be a hero, but in everything that he has read, it's like you have to be in this grand adventure to be a hero, and it's a big, huge deal to be a hero. and he just doesn't know how he's going to be able to accomplish it. So it goes through on the different pages, like what he considers the things that a hero does. And it doesn't really happen for him. What's great about this book is, in the end, he becomes a hero. But it is totally not in the way that we as the reader see it coming. We see the perfect opportunity for him to be a hero. And he thinks he's a hero for some other reason. It's a clever ending. But what Teri said yesterday was, this is a great book for showing stereotype compared to archetype. So it's the stereotype of what a hero is, but then in real life, what is a hero? And it really is a great book to show that. And we use picture books with older kids all the time. And this is a great one to cover that type of lesson.
Moving up to young adult for just a moment. This is David Lubar's most recent book, Character Driven. If you know David Lubar, and I think I've read everything that David's written, I love his weenie books, The Attack of the Lawnmower Weenies and the Vampire Weenies, and David makes a lot of really kind of semi-crude jokes about the weenie books. Teri Lesesne loves my weenie, and it's like, let's not put that in publicity information. But he also writes incredible novels, and this is one of those. This is Character Driven. It still has the characteristic David Lubar humor. And I appreciate books that are funny because it seems the older reader gets, the less funny some of those books are. This book is funny, but it ultimately is about a very intense kind of situation, deals with abuse, deals with relationships, deals with how do you find help in desperate situations, but all the while kind of balancing that with a character who has a really good sense of himself and a sense of humor as well. I love the title because it's character, driven. And I always like to point things out to kids because that's not instinctive. Kids will look at the cover, flip, flip, flip. They'll read through, they'll skip a prologue because what in the world is that? It doesn't say chapter 1. So sometimes they miss stuff that's important. So we spend some time talking about that. We spend time in picture books talking about end pages, talking about what happens when you remove the cover and it no longer exists. Do you still have a book that's attractive at the end? John Shue says you should smell the book always and see if it smells good. We don't go quite that far. But nonetheless, we want you to look at it kind of like I see it, I taste a pickle, see, hear, smell. We want you to use all those senses. So with Lubar, I like to point out the title of the book. I like to read the first chapter because it's incredibly funny, and then it ends with a kind of a jaw-dropping moment. And that's where you stop and you just kind of put the book over there and then you walk away from it so you don't become injured when the kids flock to pick it up.
Are we there yet? I love Dan Santat, all right? He is one of my favorite illustrators to follow now because he is also very active on on social media. And he's hysterical. He's hysterical. So this book, wonderful. Of course, we all know every kid is going to be able to connect. An adult is going to be able to connect with this book. Are we there yet? Because that is, we've all suffered through those trips where we're bored to tears in the back seat going somewhere with our parents. So this story is a wonderfully imaginative story of family's travel. On the Eve version of this book, it warns you at the very beginning to make sure you lock your rotation on your device because this book is meant to be turned and flipped and all kinds of stuff because the illustrations and stuff follow along the page and everything, and it's just so unique. Unicorn named Sparkle. This little girl sees an ad for a unicorn in a magazine or newspaper, and she takes her quarter and she mails it off and she orders her unicorn. Her unicorn arrives, she opens the crate, and out walks this. And she's like, oh, I'm going to name you Sparkle. But then she starts to realize that it eats all the flower crowns it puts on its head. It doesn't quite smell like she thinks a unicorn should smell like. And it eats the tutu she puts on it. So she's like, well, I'm going to send it back. This is for the birds. She sends it back, And then she realizes that she did like Sparkle after all, and she runs and makes sure she comes back, and she loves Sparkle. Never in this book does it ever come to terms with the fact that this is a goat. Never. Never is it said. Now we know it's a goat. The reader or the author or the reader knows it's a goat. It's got the horn tied to its head, for goodness sake. It's a goat. But never does this little girl come out of her fantasy of Sparkle being a unicorn. It's lovely. It's charming, and it's hysterical because this goat is just not a unicorn. It doesn't act like a unicorn should.
Still Life with Tornado by A.S. King. That's Amy King, who uses the A.S. so that boys might actually pick up the book too. I like that her initials with her name spell out asking, because I find myself asking questions every time I read one of her novels. I adore them. I taught gifted and talented kids for 10 years in public school. And way back then in the dark ages, the wisdom was, if you've got a kid in 8th grade who reads at the 12th grade level, well, then let's give them Animal Farm, because that's what they'll be reading when they get to high school. And kids in 8th grade who read Animal Farm are like, what the what? Actually, in the school district in which I worked, 4th graders were reading Animal Farm in the gifted program. You want to talk about cognitive confusion. It's a nice little story about pigs and stuff, but I don't get it. Well, allegory, I don't expect you to get it in 4th grade. Piaget says you shouldn't be getting allegory yet. You should wait a little while. All that to say that when we use something like Amy King's Still Life with Tornado, or Please Excuse Vera Dietz, or any of her titles, she works in magical realism. And that to me is challenging for GT kids, because so much of the story is very realistic. That's the realism part. But there are kind of magical elements that you're trying to pull together and make sense. I come to the end of an A.S. King book knowing that I'm going to go back to the beginning with about 5 questions sitting up here foremost in my brain, because I know I've missed some stuff. It can't be a quick read. It has to be a careful read. And there are a handful of authors who I think do that well. Amy is one of them. So if you've not read any A.S. King, I know I just had a student write her little blog post about it, and she wrote me first and she said, I can't figure out how to summarize this book. And I said, well, do your best. I've read it, so I should be able to follow the thread. But then in her response to it, she just says, this is so confusing. I'm not sure any kid could read it and understand it. And I thought, I know the kids. I know the kids who like the challenge, who will ask questions throughout the narrative. And I think Amy King's books are those kinds of books that we can use with middle school and high school kids who are very gifted readers, who are reading well beyond their years. All it means is they do really well on tests, by the way. They still need help entering into some of these narratives. And I think they'll come out, with some questions as well. You read it first. 8th grade, I would say I wouldn't give it to a 6th grader, because there's stuff that takes place, and there's stuff that takes place. But I think if you read first, but I do like the idea of magical realism. Francesca Lia Block was the one who kind of brought that to the YA world. It was pretty much an adult phenomenon until then. And I remember when I first read Weetsy Bat thinking, this is the weirdest book I have ever read in my life. And I was in a graduate YA course, and I had to go in and book talk it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, so there's this girl named Weetsy, and there's this guy, and then there's Secret Agent Lover Man, and there's this, and there's that, and they're all living in LA land, kind of thing. And it was really kind of hip-hoppy kind of things. And everybody was going, that sounds weird. And it's like, it is, but it's really short. So here. There's a time and a place, I think, for magical realism. I've since gone on to read some of the adult authors who work with magical realism, and it's a whole lot of fun, to tell you the truth.
Has anybody read an A.S. King book in here? Okay,
need to fix that.
Go check her out. One of my very favorites by her is Gloria O'Brien. What is it? History of the Future?
Mm-hmm.
History of the Future. Oh, so good.
She's just written her first middle grade novel.
Yep.
The Secret of Marvin Gardens, which is like 2 down in my to be read stack. It's coming to the surface.
But jot down Gloria O'Brien for mm-hmm. A.S. King. History of the Future, I believe is what it's called. But Gloria O'Brien will get you there.
And I'd go, oh, well, I can look. Go ahead while you're talking about Worm Loves Worm.
Worm Loves Worm. Wonderful illustrations. This is a very subversive book. Worm loves worm. They want to get married. So they decide they're going to get married, and somebody's going to have to marry them. And so they find somebody to marry them, and then they have to decide about the ceremony. And the very best, I wish we had the 2-page spread, but we didn't include it in this, is where they're trying to decide who's going to wear what. Basically, what do you wear? It's like, well, there's a dress and a veil and a top hat and a tux. And so one of them grabs the dress that they like the dress, and the other one, and the same one with the dress puts on the top hat, and the one with the tux wears the veil. And, everybody's fine with that. They don't have a problem. Their rings, favorite of the rings, because they're just little gold bands. They wear them over their necks, and they stop at the little part that goes out, to prevent it from falling down their bodies. So their little their rings are around their necks. They're just so cute. This is the story of love who you want to love. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what you are. Love is love, and if you're not hurting anybody else, love is love. And so that's what this book is, but done in a very funny, quirky kind of way. And it's enjoyable. We read this, pulled it out at a faculty meeting, and read this at a faculty meeting, and just couldn't stop talking about it. And it passed from person to person to person in our faculty meeting, so they all could read it and we could talk about it. But in addition to it being subversive, which as a librarian, kind of rebels anyway, I kind of like that. Just the story is great, and the illustrations, like I said, with that little ring, the illustrations are perfect.
And you were right on the title. It's Gloria O'Brien's History of the Future. I went and looked it up. My favorite, I think, is Everybody Sees the Ants, maybe.
Oh,
I don't know. It's hard to have favorites.
We
were talking last night about Pete Houtman, and then we walked into the bookstore today and went, oh, we forgot about Rash. Oh, we forgot about that.
But they don't have my very favorite of his there.
Invisible,
Invisible.
Excuse me. John Corey Whaley won a Prince and a Morris for his first book, Where Things Come Back. I will never forget that because I was chair of the Morris Committee. And when I trotted the book down to the ALA office, to the YALSA office to turn it in, the gal kind of went, oh, I've seen this book, and went to her little box of, you turn in the book, and pulled out, and there was a Prince sticker on the same book. Now, I'm not supposed to know that, and I went 24 hours having to keep my mouth shut. But they announced it. They announced the Morris Award at the conference, and we were sitting right behind the Prince Committee. So they announced the Morris Award for When Things Come Back, and the whole Prince Committee turned around as one and went, yes. And my committee's like, oh, good, they like our choice. That's nice. And then they announced that it also won the Prince. So best debut novel and most distinguished contribution to literature for young adults. That's 2. His second book was a finalist for the National Book Award, Noggin. Which is also kind of an interesting story.
Have you read Noggin in here? You need to write Noggin.
Just the cover of it just does me in.
It's like a Ken doll, kind of buff with a head.
Yes.
Okay. You know the premise? It's a kid that has terminal cancer, and he's going to die, and there is no hope. They cannot save him. So he gets into this experimental program that they cut off his head and they freeze it because in 100 years they're going to be able to transplant him on another body and whatever. The thing is technology moves a lot faster than they anticipated. So they're able to reconnect him to a different body in 5 years instead of 100. A lot of problems in his life because of this. Because now, yes, he's happy to be alive, but his best friends, his schoolmates, his girlfriend, they've moved on 5 years only. They're in college. He has to go back to like his senior year and finish. So there's just so many issues, and they've moved on in life, but it's not long enough ago for them to forget how they felt. It's just.
And here's his third book.
Yes.
And it has since won an award, and I wish I could remember what it is, but I know it has. It's the story of a boy who is severely agoraphobic. He lives in his home. He goes out sometimes to swim, but back into the safety of his house. Some traumatic things have happened to make him want to be there. One of the girls who used to be his classmate, one of the young women, reads about him, and she wants to get into a very prestigious college and study psychology, and she thinks, I will take him on, get him to go outside. I will write this all up. It will get me a scholarship for sure. It's not only highly illogical behavior on the part of the young man, it's highly unethical behavior on the part of this young woman who thinks she's going to do, it's a good thing she's doing until he discovers that she's doing it in order to get into school. And that makes him question everything that's happened. It's just a really interesting look at psychological behavior and our impetus for doing things. You know, is it truly a kind gesture, or is it just because we want to get something out of it? And those are some big issues for kids to wrestle with, but they can do it safely within the pages of a really good novel. School's first day of school. It's the day before school starts. We all know what that's like, those of us who have worked in schools. I never sleep the day before school starts because I'm always, what am I going to do? What story will I start with? Will I like my kids? Will they like me? What am I going to wear? How early do I need to get there? You know, all those things that, well, school has those same kind of issues. And the day before school's supposed to start, school is really worried. Am I ready? Is everything prepared? Has the janitor taken care of everything? Will the teachers like how I look? How will the kids be when they get to the school? I want everything to be perfect. I love that use of personification, that even school is a little worried about the first day of school. And I think it would be a great read aloud for the first day of school as well, to say everybody's a little on edge for that very first day.
School gets his feelings hurt because here's one of the students like coming in, it's like, oh, I hate school. And it's like, oh, and so it really gets his feelings hurt. It's like, why doesn't he like school? Christian Robinson is the illustrator of this book. So you know the Newbery winner. No, yeah, Newbery winner from last year. So yeah, okay, treat. This is Mary Sullivan. There was another book of hers called Ball. Her illustrations are phenomenal, I think, here. So there's nothing in this book as far as words except for the word treat. That's it. This little dog hears food going on. You know how dogs are when they hear anything. It's like, you know, my dog's very involved in something, and all of a sudden there's a crinkle of a wrapper. It's like, whoop, point right there in my face. That little dog hears something, and so treat, and so he's got a little question mark. The thing I love about her illustrations is it just takes hardly anything for her to show so much expression in her animals. Look at that little dog. Just there's 3 different looks here in just this one page, with treat being expressed in a different way each time. And so this is great for kids to get even used to voice, because you don't read something the same way. You know, it depends on punctuation. It depends on context. And this is a great way for them to practice different ways to say treat. You know, so it's like treat. It's like treat. You know, so it's perfect for voice. In addition to it just being absolutely adorable. This poor little dog, just all he wants is a treat.
Snow White, a variant by Matt Phelan. It is done in black and white. It's mostly textless as well. And it's set right after the stock market crash. And so your 7 dwarves are street urchins. Snow White has kind of fallen from grace. I love to look at different variants of folk tales. Now, the thing about this is, if I'm going to use it with a middle school grade or even 4th, 5th grade, I could probably use it with, I need to make sure they know Snow White. Because only if you know those archetypes will this work. And so I like to then share the Grimm brothers version of Snow White. I mean, let's go back and you know, she dances to her death in iron shoes. And then Snow White in New York by Vivian French, which I love. It's kind of an Art Deco Snow White. I like to pull up the other variants and then include this one as well. The Elephant and Piggy Tales, these were the first 2 books in that series, and we are growing one, the Geisel Award, but we love the Cookie Fiasco, Karen.
Cookie Fiasco should have won it too, at least in honor. First of all, with We Are Growing, it's great. It's a language book because it's doing superlatives. I'm the twirliest. I'm the curliest. I'm the straightest. You know, so it works on those EST words. But it's hysterical. All right, the Cookie Fiasco is math. They have 3 cookies, 4 friends. They're stressing out because one of them's not going to have a cookie. So they're trying to figure out how it's going to be fair, and they all get a cookie. And the little hippo there, he's like holding them, and he's getting real nervous, and he's like crunching them up, and they're crunching, and they're freaking out, because they're like, you're crunching them all up, we're not going to have any cookie left. And so like through all of this just mishap, we get pieces of cookie. And then they're able to see that once they have like 12 pieces, they can split those 12 pieces between their 4 friends, and 3 cookies actually can be split between all of them. But it's, there again, it's laugh out loud funny. Snapsy the alligator did not ask to be in this book, he says. This is metafiction. I love it when characters talk to you as the reader. I like that in TV shows as well. I mean, I like it when they look at you. I'm trying to think of a TV show.
Well, but it's Shakespeare asides. I mean, you can move it all the way up to the classics.
Yeah. So this is my favorite spread here. He scooted up the tall hill. He shimmied through the forest. He goes, "You're an awful narrator. You're just describing what's in the illustrations." And it's kind of funny because you are just describing what's in the illustrations. We can see that a true picture book, the illustrations complement the text. It's not like it's replacing it exactly. So Snapsy's kind of right there, but it's so funny. Another Snapsy book is coming out, which I'm excited about. But it's that metafiction, which is kind of it's been a little trend lately. Where it's like the book talking about the book, thinking about thinking, and so it's all of that.
A hungry lion and a dwindling assortment of animals. This is the first page. Once upon a time, there was a hungry lion, a penguin, a turtle, a little calico kitten, a brown mouse, a bunny with floppy ears, and a bunny with unfloppy ears, a frog, a bat, a pig, a slightly bigger pig, a woolly sheep, a koala, and also a hen. And then as you turn to the next double-page spread, one by one, the animals start to dwindle. There's a hungry lion and a dwindling assortment of animals. What could possibly be going on?
So we're trying to get through this story, because then the lion likes to turn it around. We're trying to move on to the story, and then he turns around and he's like, "Oh, come on, another animal's gone," and so we have to start over again. It's almost like a cumulative type thing, because we go, once upon a time, there was a da-da-da-da-da-da, and what one's left off each time. And it's a surprise ending. It's so good.
We like that. Several of our authors have talked about where ideas come from, because kids love to ask that. Where do your ideas come from? I have one author that I love who says, "Oh, there's an idea store." And we go and we shop, and depending on how much we want to spend, we get a good idea or a not so good idea. But Philip Stead has answered it beautifully in this book that combines art and then photographs as well. And it's about the fact that ideas are all around us, and we just kind of need to open our eyes to see them.
Tell me a tattoo story. There were a couple of tattoo books that came out last year. My other one that I love, it's funny, but it wouldn't be what we would consider to be the OMA or whatever we called our award. What was it called? When My Dad Used to Be Cool. That's another. It's funny. This one though is very touching, as well as the illustrations are beautifully done. It's a bedtime story type thing. The son is like, "Dad, tell me about your tattoos. Tell me about this one. Tell me about that one." And so as the kid's going to bed or whatever, the dad is explaining these tattoos. And so in the pages, you get to see him talk about the tattoo, but then you also on the page get to see Dad's memories of that event. So like one represents when he met his wife or the mom at like a cafe in Paris. Another one is representative of his time in war. And it's like shows like sand in a sandy, and he's in his fatigues. And then it ends with the one that he got to represent the birth of their boy. And so of course the little boy wants to hear, this one that represents you, And it's, tattoos are in our world. It's a very mainstream thing now. And this is just another example of how much that is the case, because they're showing up in our children's picture books.
Well, we all heard Kate, and I was not the only one who cried my eye makeup off. I know that, because you do understand this as being really autobiographical. If Raimi can win this contest in her little town, maybe her dad will read about it in the paper and want to come back and be a member of the family. Any child from a family that has been shaken by divorce feels a connection to Raimi, but they also feel connections to the other girls in this book and to the incredibly eccentric adult characters. I love that about De Camilla's work. Thunderboy Jr., I love Sherman Alexie #1, but there's Thunderboy Jr. sitting with his legs almost able to reach around Daddy's neck. That's how big Daddy is. And of course, there's that first double page spread. I hate my name because I'm Junior. And it's hard to live up to Thunderboy when you're that kind of small. I love that book. We know from looking at the latest statistics from the Cooperative Children's Book Center that there are so few books that feature First Nation, Native American characters. As a matter of fact, the last graphic I saw from last year's, you're 25 times more likely to read about a truck than about a Native American. That's wrong and sad, and we need to do what we can to correct it. So anytime we see children's books, especially those that are authentic, I think it's a good thing to kind of share it with kids.
Right, because we don't just want the book out there to be because it fits that category. We want them to be quality as well. So we definitely want to push for
that helps too.
Quality. That's right.
I just think it should be a rule that Richard Peck wins an award every time he writes a book. And I love the bookends of this. It begins with a wedding and ends with a wedding. And the wedding it begins with, our main character is the ring bearer. And his mom has bought him a little Lord Fauntleroy suit. Now, I know what that is because I'm old. I will probably have to describe that for kids or put a couple pictures up so they can see it. But the pants are too tight. And he bends over to pick up something and just rips the living daylights out of the back end of his pants. It's too late to fix them. The ceremony's starting. Mom says you have to go down. So his best friend, who is the flower girl, just kind of walks right on his heels all the way down so nobody sees that he split the back end of his pants. And it kind of goes from there. And it deals with war, and it deals with family, and it deals with you can't help for whom you fall in love. It's just that kind of thing. It's absolutely wonderful writing. Probably 5th, 6th, 7th, somewhere around there. Richard Peck continues to show that he can write just about anything, the historical fiction, the wonderful, the teacher's funeral, which I love, if your teacher's going to die, August ain't a bad time for that to happen. That's the first sentence. I, never forget that one. But, Long Way from Chicago and A Year Down Yonder, he did those wonderful pieces there. But he began as a young adult literature author. Are You in the House Alone? Father figure, and wrote about divorce, wrote about date rape before we had even the term date rape. So I just think he should continue to win awards.
And he can also write about mice.
That's right.
I mean,
That's
with
true.
mice being his main characters.
And I feel the same way about Kwame Alexander, and he talked this morning. And in the interest of time, since we've got like very few minutes left and a whole lot of books.
This is definitely YA. This is definitely YA.
Oh, I did it right. There you go.
Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. YA. Tearjerker. One that is going to make you sob and turn into a puddle of goo. All right.
Yay,
it's
my
totally
favorite.
a friendship to love story, but then there's something that happens that really causes a major rift between them, but then they get back together because they find out the truth, and that's where you are just crumbling. It's so good. It's a great friendship story, a great love story.
Okay. It was a good year for foxes last year. This is Kathy Appelt's and Allison McGee's Maybe a Fox. And a little while later, I think we have Wolf Hollow showing up, or Pax or something like that. It's like suddenly wild animals are becoming kind of part and parcel of the stories they were telling. I love Kathy Appelt. She's a Texas author. She lives right down the road from us. The reason I just am enthralled by this book is the idea of two authors working together on a piece of fiction. I'm co-authoring a professional book with a friend, and that's hard enough to try to get voices together. Who's going to do what? How do we divide up this work? Whose voice gets to rule when somebody's has to rule? Those are really difficult situations in professional literature, let alone what are we going to do here? And yet it's seamless. You can't tell. You just can't tell. And I think it's phenomenal because of that. Karen and I, this was another one we shared with the faculty. There are only 6 of us on the faculty. We are a very small program. We're school library only, so we're kind of tight. And we have a faculty meeting every Tuesday, and we start with lunch, and then usually Karen and I share some books. Sometimes we have a theme for the week, and sometimes we read books aloud, but we always then put them on the ledge of the whiteboard that's in our conference room so that our faculty members can read, and then they go out in the hall to be given to teacher ed students to help build their libraries. This one I think is still around because nobody wanted to let it go. It was like, no, I think I might want to look at it again.
It's that beautiful.
It is an incredible story of a boy who wakes up and sees a gardener who comes in at night and begins to shape the trees and the bushes into these incredible topiaries. And as the story opens, the sky is gray, the whole neighborhood is kind of gray, people walk past one another without acknowledging one another. But as they begin to discover these topiaries, these remarkable things, and as our boy becomes an apprentice to the gardener, so when the gardener leaves, he can still take on those duties, suddenly the neighborhood is brighter. You see the sun shining, you see people stop to talk to one another. And it's that thing about aesthetics. We need to experience beauty in our lives. It's one of Maslow's needs, part of that hierarchy, that if we don't see beauty and experience beauty, it's hard for us to become beautiful ourselves. I absolutely adore the illustrations. You would match it with
Grandpa Green. It's a great one for to match with Grandpa Green. The thing is that I think is wonderful about this book beyond just the plain illustrations all the way through is the fact that it shows the emotions through the illustrations. Like she said at the very beginning, it's gray, sepia, whatever, and it gets brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter to the end. You're extremely vibrant in the picture. And so the mood, it just shifts through those illustrations. It's great.
So much we can teach here about color and the
that.
use of color kind of thing, so that when they read The Mask of the Red Death by Poe, when they get to 8th grade, if it's still in the anthology as it was when I taught, we can talk about the fact that why is it Red Death? Why do they go through different rooms that are different colors? It's color symbolism. We've already seen it, and we've talked about it. We've talked about it with really young readers. So we're starting to talk about things that are abstract but have that concreteness because of the book.
The Way I Used to Be by Amber Smith is a story of date rape, and it is definitely for high school. It starts with a girl who is date raped by a family friend. It's her brother's best friend who's almost like an adopted kid in the family. They love him that much. Parents turn a blind eye to it. They even see some of the results of the struggle the next morning, and the mom's kind of like, oh, really, you should be more careful, and she doesn't confess. And the fact that she doesn't say what happened that day, what happens the next day? It's harder to even come up with it. And it just becomes harder and harder, and she eventually doesn't say anything. It follows her through 4 years of high school, freshman through senior, and each year she spirals further down and further down and further down, until in the end she's hit just about rock bottom and relies on a friend to kind of help her decide what she needs to do. It's intense.
Well, for those kids that read Speak,
definitely.
I think it's a next kind of logical step up.
Yeah.
The way I used to be. Yeah, it kind of fades out up there.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
I
don't know why.
They've got the contrast difference, I guess.
Sorry about that.
The Way I Used to Be.
Sarah Pennypacker's Pax. Christine O'Connell George wrote a wonderful poem about a librarian who takes those sad books and in the middle of them she tucks Kleenex. This is a Kleenex book, for sure, from the first couple chapters. But I love this cut quote from one of the characters in the book. I'm exactly where I should be, doing exactly what I should be doing. That is peace. That is so profound, and it's right there in a children's book, and sometimes I think pulling out those cut pieces is really kind of nice.
Learning to Swear in America. I love it. 1, 2, 3, or the one is a middle finger. Okay. This is a story of Yuri. He is a person from Russia, a young boy, like 16, 17 years old, but he's brilliant. He's already got his doctorate. He's working at a university in Russia doing research on the astrological stuff, all right? So an asteroid is heading to Earth we only have so much time to try and prevent it, to head it off at the pass. So think Armageddon, okay, the movie. Well, they're trying to come up with a solution. So America brings over Yuri to help. Well, he's not really ever been a teenager because of the way he's done his schooling and how smart he is. So when he gets here, he does a little exploring around, and he meets a girl who's really quirky. And he realizes some of the things that he's missed. And it's like, oh crap, now the world's about to end. And I just now realized, I haven't even lived, On top of that struggle, he's having to struggle with the older scientists that will not take any of his recommendations seriously because he's so young. And he knows because it's the research he's been studying. He knows how to stop the asteroid, but he's trying to get them to believe it, take him seriously.
Okay, we have 3 minutes and about 30 slides. Let's see how fast we can go. There's already a sequel that will be out soon, The Wild Robot. It's a robot that falls off a container ship, ends up on an island, an animal accidentally presses the on button, and now she's on. And ultimately, the book, to me, is about what does it mean to be human, to help others. Can a machine be a sentient being? And by the end, I'm going, yep, I think so. I would like to have this person for a friend. Saving Red, novel in verse by Sonia Sones. I adore her work. Stop Pretending the Year My Big Sister Went Crazy, What My Mother Doesn't Know, What My Boyfriend Doesn't Know, or My Girlfriend Doesn't Know. I absolutely love it. This one is about helping somebody who's very resistant to being helped. Not everybody wants to go, oh, thank you so much for your kindness. Sometimes they're like, get away, I'm fine.
Yeah, I don't
and
want
how
your
do you,
clothes.
how do you approach somebody like that?
The first time she drowned, very dysfunctional family. This narcissistic mother is having a struggle with her daughter, has her committed just because she's having trouble with her. Not crazy. Anyway, very dysfunctional, very dysfunctional. And when she's able to check herself out at 18, she goes to college. Mother kind of comes back into her life, and we get to see through those interactions why the mother's like she is, the family is like it is. We get to kind of see what happened, and we get some flashbacks of things that have happened to her. Amazing book, but very intense, very high school.
I think ultimately RUTA SEPETYS Salt to the Sea got a Scott Odell Honor Award this year, so I was happy to see that. I want to recommend the audio for this book. The audio is incredible and really brings the story to life. I had already read the book itself and then was listening to it in audio and just picked up some stuff I had missed the first time. It's kind of like a reread. And we both just got text messages that the YA Sync program starts April 27th, which is early this year. Mm-hmm. If you don't know about that, we'll be happy to explain it to you after this is over because we've got like 30 seconds. Sean Tan's Singing Bones. It's his sculptures and how they fit to little excerpts from the classic Grimm's fairy tales. So not original text, original sculpture as illustration. You probably know Sean Tan from some of his textless work before. He's an Australian author and illustrator, and it's incredible. The Tree in the Courtyard is the story of Anne Frank. The tree grows outside the annex, outside the attic. And from the tree's perspective, we learn about the Franks and their having to stay hidden. The tree is eventually chopped down, but they save seeds from the tree, and there are now seedling trees growing in Newtown at the site of the school slayings, in Oklahoma at the site of the bombing, and in other places where tragedies have taken place. I love that. That's a Kleenex book as well. True and Nell, Truman Capote and Nell Harper Lee, their childhood. There'll be a book at Christmas called True and Nell's Christmas Story, I think is what it is. The sequel is coming out. I think there are early arcs right now by Greg Neary.
Frank and Crayon, just check it out if you haven't seen it already. It's another great book that's got a good surprise ending.
The Uncorker of Ocean Bottles, just put the Kleenex inside the picture book. This was a National Book Award finalist, When the Sea Turned to Silver. Anything by Grace Lynn I absolutely adore. Again, the audio for this is magnificent. And finally, The Secret Subway, to learn about the first kind of moving underground for the New York subway system and how the work was suspended and everything kind of walled off, but it still exists. Libba Bray's trilogy is set in some scenes in that subterranean subway. And so she takes something that's a wonderful picture book and turns it into a really scary,
So scary.
kind of story. We know that everybody has books that probably got missed along the way. Here are some. We hope that you kind of add to this. And thank you so much for coming.
Only a minute over.
Not bad.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Oops.
No,
Where is it?
no handout. No handout.
It's going to be up online.
Okay.
See,
Oh, it's at this address. You'll be able to see the video right there.
there we go.